It's the first Treehouse of Horror, a major moment in series history. This is what sparked a tradition the show still carries on to this day, 33 seasons in. I wonder how it holds up. I'm going to have to tackle this one differently than I usually do, since it's an anthology with no cohesive plot. Fortunately, I have little help. My friend Charles is here. He's an expert on anything and everything horror-related, and he's here to help put this episode into context within the horror genre. Hi, I'm Torin.
And I'm Charles.
And welcome to Torin Loves the Simpsons. Today, as mentioned previously, we're looking at Season 2, Episode 3, Treehouse of Horror. The first segment is Bad Dream House, a tale of the Simpson family moving into a possessed house and not getting along too well with it. Humor-wise, we don't really have a ton to talk about, which is pretty surprising considering it was written by John Swartzwelder. It's interesting to see an example of Swartzwelder trying to be spooky and serious instead of funny and absurd. This is definitely a departure for him, and I think it works well in this context. In the slower and more intellectual, graining Simon Brooks era, it sets the tone for the episode that we aren't in for big wacky romps. We're in for intrigue and drama tonight. That said, as far as laughs go, Bad Dream House is a bit on the weak side. It's certainly not going for laughs, so I'm taking that into consideration here in giving this segment's humor a B. Charles, why don't you tell us about this segment's place in the horror genre?
Yes. Well, The Bad Dream House is kind of riffing off of a couple different iconic horror films. It really brings to mind Stephen King's The Shining, with shades of Poltergeist and certainly Amityville Horror. In the kitchen, we see the walls bleeding blood, and the vortex in the kitchen, it brings to mind concepts of classic scenes from the Poltergeist as well as The Shining, the elevator scene. Homer stuck to the ceiling is certainly an homage to A Nightmare on Elm Street. What's really fun is that you have Bart in a very Nightmare on Elm Street bedroom. Lisa's doing something a little bit of an a la Lizzie Borden, and Maggie does an exorcist head spin. Homer also has an axe very much of like the Jack Torrance of The Shining. I'll also bring up a really subtle line read that Marge, when she says, "I'm in the kitchen, Homer," it's very much the same cadence as "They're coming to get you, Barbara," from the classic Night of the Living Dead. So it really cements this as a Poltergeist homage and as more of an amalgam of the adaptation than any one singular film. And then I'll also note that the exterior of the house is very much the Addams Family. I would say that they are really good references. Horror fans are going to take notice and get excited about it, especially because some of these references are a little more subtle or obscure. It also brings to the horror genre family traditions. This is something that I can't have a Halloween season without watching a couple of Treehouse of Horrors, and this is definitely the one segment on my list. Definitely more of a family-friendly than a lot of the other horror media out there. And I will say that my favorite line of the episode is when Bart says, "Hey man, we own you. Let's see some blood." It's the first of its kind, which is a huge deal. I will give the horror on this episode an S+, top tier references, fun for the whole family, and wouldn't change a thing.
Moving on to Hungry Are the Damned. This is definitely the segment I would have guessed was written by John Swartzwelder when I saw him listed as a writer on the episode. But nope, this one's by Jay Kogen and Wallace Wolodarski. This segment is one big, long screw the audience joke, very clearly painting a picture of the aliens fattening up the Simpsons to eat them and hitting us with the twist ending. Looking at it a certain way, I do still see a possibility that the aliens were indeed going to eat the Simpsons, but they prepared themselves with enough plausible deniability that they could, and I use this oft misused term in a very literal sense, gaslight the Simpsons if questioned or confronted. I don't know, that's pure speculation on my part, but it's an interesting twist on the twist, I think. Also real quick, there are a couple animation errors in this segment that have always bugged me, even since I was a little kid. Here, when the tractor beam is pulling Homer up, in this shot it's clearly pulling him between the two beams, but then when it cuts to this shot, Homer is entirely within the center beam. Then when Lisa is blowing dust off the cookbook, she blows dust off the left side, but it reveals text on the right side. Not a deal breaker, but those are a slight hit against the segment. Anyways, as for the humor here, this segment is the highlight of the episode. I particularly love the coincidence that English and Rigelian are exactly the same, and I love Kang's delivery of that line. Harry Shearer really nailed it there. And there are a few quick punches too, such as the HBO line, and overall there's very much a wacky and absurd vibe. Very characteristic of John Swartzwelder, who I can't stress enough did not actually write this segment, and I'm very surprised by that. But this segment fills the comic relief role very well and gives a lighthearted change of pace to the episode that serves a nice follow-up to Bad Dream House. The humor in this segment gets an A.
The whole of this segment is definitely a riff on the Twilight Zone classic To Serve Man. The basic plot of To Serve Man was aliens come down to Earth to share their knowledge with the Earthlings, and with a book written in their own language that gets deciphered by the US government. And then the twist is the title that is To Serve Man, but it was in fact a cookbook on how to serve man, the species. Kang the Conqueror is in fact a Marvel Comics character, so that in itself is that reference. And to pronounce it correctly, I would have to pull out your tongue, is a subtle H.P. Lovecraft reference, and as human mouths cannot pronounce such names as the great old ones. We get tones of Hansel and Gretel, certainly, and there's a bit of a Dracula reference as they refuse to eat the food as their guests dine. Very much the monsters are due on Maple Street kind of ending. And since the episode did in fact surprise me, as it was not exactly riffing off of the Twilight Zone classic, I will actually give this segment a B+ for surprising even the most seasoned of horror enthusiasts.
And lastly, it's time to look at the show's adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. We get some excellent narration from the one and only James Earl Jones, whose voice we actually already heard in this episode as Sarok the Preparer in Hungry Are the Damned. And oh my, does he show us yet again why he is an absolute legend of a voice actor. This segment thrives on its mood and atmosphere, which Jones helps set perfectly, and as things escalate, his narration drives things to a most satisfying crescendo. This segment seems to get very little love from the Simpsons community, and I think that's a gosh darn fucking shame. It's certainly another example of how early on, the show really required you to pay attention to properly get it. It's slow, yes, but also immersive and atmospheric, and also has a good amount of laughs, many of them the visual variety. I particularly love the A Volume of Forgotten Lore bit. It also makes excellent use of the Bart and Homer dynamic, particularly when Homer first dives for Bart. The characters we love and are watching the show for are contributing to how the adaptation is presented in a way that flows seamlessly with the story presented by the original poem. I would certainly say that Bart carries the bulk of the humor in this segment, and enough to earn the segment a B+.
So naturally, as Poe fans will recognize, this is probably the straightest adaptation of a classic story in the Treehouse of Horror series, as the entirety of the episode is written in the language of Poe. Ravens speak much like parrots, so the implication that this raven overheard someone say, "nevermore," is just as frightening as the actual raven speaking. The bust of Poe is seen on a bookshelf, and Bart the Raven pulls notable Poe works off the shelf: The Pit and the Pendulum, The Telltale Heart, and The Pululian Letter. I think it's a great first step into someone that is unfamiliar with Poe's works and perhaps would actually take the time to read the original story. So as far as its contribution to the spookier world at large, I'll definitely give that a solid B+.
And now it's time to look at the episode as a whole. I'm giving the episode's humor a B+.
Horror for the episode overall, from me, gets a solid A.
Cool. So now I think it's time for final ratings. Bad Dream House got a B for humor and an S+ for horror, and overall I'm giving it an A. Hungry Are the Damned got an A for humor and a B+ for horror, and overall it gets an A-. The Raven got a B+ for humor and a B+ for horror, But I think there's more to this segment that isn't captured by these metrics, and I'm not sure how to put it into words, but I'm giving this segment overall an A. And for the episode as a whole, the humor got a B+, and horror got an A, and I'm giving it an A-. I'll admit this is one that rarely comes to mind even for me when I think of Treehouse of Horror episodes, but man, is this a good episode. The tradition it sparked is well deserved. Thanks for watching. Don't forget the YouTube algorithm stuff, like the like button and subscribing and notifications bell and all that. It really helps me out to get better placement by the YouTube machine. Up next, we have 2 cars in every garage and 3 eyes on every fish, so I will see you in that video.